you out a mid-search update on our superintendent search.
Do you want us here, or what do you want?
Yeah, that's great.
Sure. Okay, I'll start us off. Well, Happy New Year. Good to see everybody. In case people don't know, I'm Wayne Robertson with Northwest Leadership Associates. I'm here with Mark Vinn and Laurel Browning. We're the three search consultants that are working with the school board and the school district on the selection of the superintendent. So, nice to be here. We've got the mid-search report for you. We shared a little agenda, kind of tell you where we're going tonight. I'm going to take the first few items, and then Mark's going to take kind of the middle few, and then Laurel's going to finish it up, so you get to see everybody tonight. The objectives for tonight are to share with you some informal data on our recruiting and contacts we've made, kind of tell you what we've been up to since we last spent some time with you, and then have some conversation about the what's next part of it, 2 rounds of interviews and the screening meeting and the final selection and then the announcement. So I'll get us started. Kaylee, you want to put, there you go. Anyway, again, congratulations on the new digs. This is nice. We got to see them when we did the focus room, but this is going to serve you well. Good job on that. So what this is an update of the contacts we've made. And we have, since the posting and right after the brochure was completed, we got to work and we're sending out application forms and copies of the brochure. And the brochure is a document that tells the applicants what they need to do to submit their application. So, and we want to cast a wide net. We have a kind of a running list of people who we just think are potential applicants, and they're all over the country. Some of them are people who've contacted us over time. Maybe there's somebody that applied for another job and didn't get it, or maybe they did get it, and we want them on our list. So it's just a wide net, but it's our way of reaching out to people and aggressively recruiting and inviting them to apply for the position. So we sent out 123 applications, that's the cast. Now, what people always want to know is how many applications you've received. And we've told the board multiple times that don't get concerned if by the mid-search report we only have 1 or 2, because that's typically what we have, and that's what you have. You received 1 application. That person is a principal in Alaska. Now, yesterday we received 1 more. So I didn't update the report, but now you're sitting on 2. And that's typically right where we are. The position doesn't close till February 14, and there's no incentive for people to submit early. In fact, submitting later actually makes more sense because they got more time to research the district, more time to work on their letter of their submittal and gather up their letters of recommendation. So I'll just kind of run through this and then take your questions. But so 2 applications received, 123 sent out, maybe even a few more than that in the last couple of days. Of that 123, 22 of them are current Washington State superintendents, mostly from districts a little bit smaller or same size as Sultan, and many of them we've no reason to think that they're looking to leave, but we just think they're a viable candidate, and there's people that we have a relationship in the past. So 22 of those, another 15 from out-of-state superintendents that are on our list: Oregon, California, Idaho, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, or some state that starts with an M, Montana, Wyoming, Alaska, and 1 from an international school. So a total of 37 superintendents are in our, our net. Former superintendents, interims, consultants, just kind of other people that have some high-level experience like the superintendent. 7 of them, Washington International School in Montana. So a lot of superintendents we've reached out to, and we'll see what happens with that. The biggest group always is the current Washington Assistant Superintendent and Directors. Those are people that are looking possibly for their first superintendency, or maybe they've been have some superintendent experience in the past, but they're currently at that second tier of executive level leadership. 45 of those, another two former Washington assistant superintendents and directors, so 47 of those kind of people. And then we have some current out-of-state assistant superintendents and directors, 12 of those. So we're getting lots of numbers here, lots of experienced leaders. Those 12 come from California, Oregon, Utah, Connecticut, Florida, Massachusetts, and international schools. And some of this is duplicated if the state designations are duplicated. We reached out to 13 principals. These are people that probably have their superintendent certificate and are ready for a move to the district office. Many times those would be moving to assistant superintendent or director, but sometimes people think they're ready to take on a superintendency. So we reached out to 13 of those from Washington, Alaska, California, Oklahoma, Oregon, Colorado, and the District of Columbia. And then we always have some others that don't fit any of those categories, and that was true of this group. We have one person who was a board member in the state of Washington, and he's interested in being a district leader. And you know, you don't have to have a superintendent certificate to be a superintendent in the state of Washington. You don't have to have any educational credentials. It's up to the school board to make that determination, of course. One person is a teacher. One person is a labor relations official or consultant. One person from the Department of Defense. One person in the corrections enterprise. One OSPI. And one person is a director of a nonprofit. So a wide, diverse, experientially strong candidate pool or potential candidate pool. We break them down by male and female, and always there's more, at this point in time, there's more male applicants and candidates. 94 male and 29 female, so 76% male. That's not too surprising if you think about the distribution of superintendents and high-level leaders in the state. We're still working hard to catch up our female leaders, but there's still a lag, and we keep working on that. 30%, 37 of them have their doctorate of this group, and 8, probably a few more than that, 8 are either we know they represent a minority population, or they've indicated that they are in their materials that we've seen in the past. So, and there's probably a few more there that we just haven't identified. And that's, you know, we're still working hard to get a more diverse applicant pool, and we'll see how that plays out. As of when I did this report last week, there were 57 people that had applied for your online, that had completed your online survey. That's a little low. I'd like to see a few more. We talked with Kayla at the end of right before winter break, I think it was, about maybe sending out another reminder. So now would be a good time to do that. It'd be a good time to send out a reminder about the survey and maybe an announcement of what happens next when the position closes, how the screening works, and with the 2 rounds of interviews, so people can start lining up their calendars and also complete the survey. We haven't had any hits on the Spanish survey, and as we told you when we started this process, we really haven't had much luck with the Spanish survey. That's not, I think that's kind of an Anglo tradition to complete surveys and participate in that matter. So I think we've been working pretty hard on this. This 123 is, I think, the high watermark for the number of applications that we've sent out. And we feel pretty good about that, and we feel pretty good about the quality and the depth of the people, and I think we're going to get some good applicants from this effort. And we'll continue to be sending out materials and reaching out to candidates. In the last few days, we've even heard from a couple more and picked up a name from one of our other associates in another part of the state that we'll probably pursue this week too. So, questions about any of that? Pretty straightforward. I think we got the net out there, and we're starting to get some response, and we'll keep moving that along.
Actually, quick question.
Sure.
The one person from Alaska that did send theirs in, were they one of the ones that got what you sent out?
Yes, they're a person that we reached out
That is
to.
one. Okay.
the people find out about us, we have our list, of course, and that person was on that list from a previous search. But then we also get inquiries from people finding it on the WASDA or WASDA website, people going to our website, or just word of mouth kind of thing too. But that's a person that we've reached out to. So just a couple of reminders, and then Mark's going to talk to you about some of the next steps. Position closes on the 14th. Mentioned the survey, so I think the next step for you folks would be the reminder on the survey, so we can get a few more. And if you can figure out a way to reach out to your Spanish-speaking communities, we'd be happy to help out with that and see what we can do. But anyway, that's where we are on that. Okay. Mark?
Yep, let's go.
Thanks, Wayne.
Yeah, this is a nice room for a board meeting. It is really nice, as long as it doesn't get packed, right? And you don't have those here, right? You're always like this many, so. Thanks for having us. Happy New Year to everybody in the room, and we're back. And one of the things that we did do right after the New Year is we know a lot of people are real busy during the holidays. So we sent out a reminder to all the people that we've contacted and reminded them about the position. And we'll do that again about a week before the position closes. So it closes on the 14th. We'll do that on the 7th. When the next step comes up, you'll have the online survey, a report that'll come to you probably about a week when we close it down, a week before it closes. So you'll be able to read those responses. You'll have that input. The other piece is that about a week before it closes, we'll start sending the completed applications to Kayla, who will put those in hopefully a secure lockbox that is confidential for only the board to see. And you can start reading those at that time. You can start going through those at that time. I want to caution you a little bit, though. The first ones aren't always the same as the last ones. So you just don't think, and we're reading this one, wow, this person's really great, and then you get down the road, you say, well, maybe they're not that great after all. So what'll happen is that once we close the position, then on the 19th of February, we will have an executive session. We will have a screening meeting. And the three of us will be there, and we will have vetted all the candidates that have applied. And we will have, if you choose, we will be able to put them into different classifications as to who's a must interview, we think, who's a maybe interview, and who's a no interview. They're not ready to be a superintendent in the Sultan School District. And we'll start with that, and we go through a process that really works pretty well. And we spend a couple hours with you. It's going to take a couple hours. It's an executive session. And out of that will come your semifinalists or your preliminary candidates. And usually we expect probably 5 or 6 of those that'll come out of that. Those 5 or 6 will come for preliminary interviews on a Saturday the 1st of March. And it'll run from probably 8 o'clock in the morning. We'll put together a schedule from 8 o'clock in the morning. You'll do 50-minute interviews of each candidate. You'll all have the same questions, and we'll give you some questions to work on here. That's going to be kind of your homework. After we leave, we'll send some questions for you to work on that reflect what you had in the brochure as far as characteristics and challenges and opportunities and so on. And then those questions, each of you will ask the same question all the way around the table for every candidate. So if you have the first question, Gigi, then you probably would take the 7th question or the 6th question. And we do that for each candidate, the same questions for each candidate. The candidates come in about a half an hour early, then one of us or a couple of us will meet with them. We'll go through at that time. We'll talk about the process. We'll talk about the contract, what the contract looks like, what the salary's going to be, and we will also give them a chance to look at the questions prior to meeting with you. We coach them up. We want them to do well with you. We want them to have a good experience. But 50 minutes, and it's usually about 11 or 12 questions, they've got to pace themselves, and they've got to be able to really take the time for each question as appropriate and maybe spend more on some than the others. So we coach them up for that. They come in and meet with you for 50 minutes. There'll be an audience there. It's an open public meeting. I assume that's where you want to go still, right? With an open public meeting?
Yes.
You're still going with that? So there'll be an open public meeting. There'll be an audience there. They'll have a QR code that they can locate and go on and give input after each candidate. And at the end of the day, when we've done all the candidates and we get together, at the end of the day, it's usually from about 8 to 9 to 10 to 11. We take a lunch break and we finish up about 3 if we have 6 candidates. You'll have all that information on each candidate for you to look at as a board. So it works really slick, and we'll help you through that, and there's ways that we use now to really use that technology to get that information to you. So we'll go through that, and you'll have that information. At the end of the day, we extend and go into another executive session, and out of that, we pick 3 finalists. And those 3 finalists, and Laura will talk a little bit about what that looks like when they come in, but we need to come up with 3 finalists. Usually we'll have 3 with maybe an alternate, usually 5 or 6 for the preliminaries with maybe an alternate. It depends on what the pool's gonna be like. But with a good pool, usually we would expect probably 6 semifinalists and then 3 finalists from there. So we use a process there. We need to reach consensus. We don't vote. You never vote until the very end of this process. And at the very end, you'll vote in open public meeting after it's all over. And Laura will talk a little bit more about that. So the goal after we come out of these preliminary interviews is to select 3 finalists. And then we publicize who those 3 are, and then you can do your own research. We do a lot of vetting on the candidates. We do a lot of vetting on each candidate that we bring forward to you. We'll have a report for you to look at, and hopefully we'll be able to come up to some consensus on who you want. So this will be for the board only. The students, I'm sorry, you can't be part of this. I know you want to be, but you don't have anything else going on. I know that, but anyhow, it'll be for the board only, and it's a good process and it works well, and then we get to the 3 finalists and go from there. So any questions on what it's gonna look like in the preliminaries and the screening? It'll work out good, and you can put as much time into the reading the applications as you want. It's really our job to do the vetting and our job to work on that. I suggest if you're gonna read the applications, first of all, take a look at their resume, take a look at their letter of introduction, and take a look at their written responses to the questions, because they're gonna have to do a written response to the challenges and opportunities and the characteristics that you put together in the brochure. So if you wanna kinda shortcut it, you can do it that way. Otherwise, you can read the whole thing and go through it, because they'll all have good references. They'll all have good letters of recommendation, and they should, if they're applying, they should do it. And it does take a lot of work to put these applications together, so we give them the due credit when we vet them out and talk to a lot of people that aren't on their references or on their resume, so. Okay,
Thank you.
any questions? Okay, Laura will talk about the rest.
Well, I get the exciting part. Hi. I'm so happy you have students here.
We are
So when you take a look at the finals week, you'll have 3 candidates. Each one will come and visit your school district for an entire day, and the process will repeat for each person. And they'll start early in the morning, and they'll run all the way through to the end of the evening. We'll organize a schedule so that the people, such as your leadership group, they'll have an opportunity to meet with the candidates. We'll have principals that will be able to meet, staff, district office, whoever you want. We'll just line that all the way up and run it all the way till dinner. Then dinner, you'll come in and have dinner with the candidate. Then we will go into the public meeting with the public and run a 45-minute meeting with the public. We will have questions that we'll ask the public to submit a week ahead. We can get that posted, however you would like to do that. We'll collect those questions and ask those questions of each candidate. Then we'll go into a meeting with you, just with the candidate, and you'll get another look at that candidate after the public meeting is over. So I'll give you another look. We would like you to be at the public meeting so you can hear what some of the back and forth with the audience. They do ask questions even after a question's posed, just gives you another look. And we'll work with you to have a really nice schedule for each candidate. And then what we do after each group meets with the candidate, we have a feedback form. And then we'll work with you, Kayla, and we have a QR code, same 3 questions, and so you will get the feedback each day, and sometimes people will wait till they see all 3 candidates, especially the folks in the evening, and you'll get all that on that Thursday. And that'll give you a whole nother set of eyes to help you with your decisions there. Then on the Thursday, you'll wrap that up and we'll go into executive session and you'll have an opportunity to really discuss each of the candidates and all the feedback that you saw, and you'll be able to talk between and amongst yourselves. And the goal is to come out of that evening with the person that you'd like to hire. And then we go into the next morning and we have you come back and meet, and in a public meeting, we do a roll call vote, and you have your person selected and hired and announced on that Friday.
And that's the March 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th?
Yes.
That's not good.
Isn't it?
I won't be here.
These dates, like, were
I know.
decided on like a long time ago.
You gone the whole week?
I'm gone Thursday, Friday. Or no, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Can you do something by remote?
Man. I'll have to figure something out.
We'll discuss. Go ahead.
Okay.
I just
We'll
put
figure it
those numbers, sorry, those dates just hit me in my,
Yeah, and we'll be back, so as you think of things, when we come back for the screening meeting, you know, if something's kind of gnawing at you or you have more questions, and we can feather out some details for you if something arises. And we'll work with you on getting QR codes, so the same 3 questions each group can answer, and it'll go into just a live data bank for you to look at as you go through the process. So that's where you guys get to be involved, so it'll be fun. Any questions for that? All right.
We're good.
So probably the last thing, Laurel mentioned that we work with Kayla and Gigi on the details and the logistics and kind of make sure, and if I need to come out and meet with you or something to really nail it down, we can certainly find time to do that. We know you've already started working on the contract, and so the timeline for that, what we'd like to have is when the semifinalists come in and we meet with them, as Mark mentioned, they come in a little early before their interview. We'd like to give them a copy of it's still a draft contract, but it's pretty close by that point in time, so that they know what the compensation and they know what the other terms are, whether there's a doctoral stipend or what the travel, allowance is, that sort of thing. So I think that's probably the one piece that's typically is hanging over the board's shoulder to figure that out and have it ready for the preliminary interviews. Questions for us? Anything that's keeping you awake at night other than basketball team, something like that? Okay.
No, I think we're good.
We
Looks like
try to
it.
make it easy on you guys. I mean, the hard part's gonna be at the very end, where you have to come to consensus. Sure. And do that, but, we're gonna try to help you through this, and we have a lot of consensus building models we use and put together. And we've done this before with board members not being there physically and being able to work it. I mean, you can do it through audio too. I mean, it's just,
where I'm going.
Depends on where you are, huh?
unless you're gonna be.
Well, cause what time of the day would that be?
Well, for the final interview, usually about 8 o'clock.
Yeah, right.
in a
We'll
different time
talk and then.
We'll talk about
yeah,
it.
we'll
I
figure it
screwed
out.
this up, that's okay.
That's okay.
Roxy.
We've got-
Your time commitment during that finalist week, it's 3 days, are really long days for us and for the candidate, but you kind of show up at 5 o'clock. Dinner, you probably sit through the community forum, and then the executive session interview, and then sometimes you debrief, and then the Thursday of that week, a pretty long debrief, and then a public meeting, short meeting the Friday morning. Okay.
Awesome, thank you, we
All
appreciate
right,
it.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. We usually encourage you to have the spouse or partner, significant other come for that dinner too.
Right,
And it's up to you, but we'll talk about that when we do this.
Okay. awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll see you again. Good luck with everything. Hope you get more pints supply.
Talk about it, we'll figure it out.
That was my bad, I'm sorry.
We'll beat you later. I can't say that because it's picked up on you.
Shared everybody about the sidebar conversation.
I know, and I just forgot, said I was gonna beat him for it, so.
It's recorded.
So if anything happens to you, it's, you know. All right, so the last thing on our, well, almost the last thing on our agenda, WASDA conference report out. Cameron, myself, Kayla, Dan, and Michael went to the WASDA annual conference in November. And I think we all appreciated the opportunity to do that and to get the professional development. And with that opportunity, we want to make sure that when we do these kind of things, that we come back and bring that information to our board and to everyone else, and they can kind of learn what, some of the things that we learned. It's not necessarily easy to, like, I had 40 pages of notes, and to put that on a couple slides, it's a little difficult for me, because I take notes on everything. But we want to just kind of go through, I think no more than, 5-10 minutes at most for each of us, and kind of just go over some of the things that we took away. I know I had some things that I took away, and then some things I was like, I don't want to do that. So there can be both. So it looks like, is that Dan's first?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go first, if you want to put that up. Thank you. Thanks, Kayla, and thanks, Gigi, for putting that template together. You know, we were busy for afternoon on Thursday, I think all day Friday, Saturday, about half day, and so there was a lot of sessions we went to. I just picked 4 here, and 2 of the ones that I picked were related to our, to talk about, were related to bonds. And interesting, the first one was the Ferndale School District, and the superintendent that's currently there, she wasn't in place when they passed it, but, they had a long history of having a real challenge passing bonds. And so in 2014, to build a new high school, they only got 31% positive vote, which is really bad. And so what caught me about their story was some of the same parallels that we deal with. Perception. Their team and board talked about how there was belief they weren't doing proper maintenance of their schools. A contractor, when they had built an elementary school, had given them somebody gave them a brand new gas stove. Well, they never hooked it up, but it ended up in the foyer of one of the elementaries. And so they said, well, that's how you're spending our money? Those kinds of things. And so what they did is they built a pretty strategic team of people, and beyond just having a CFAC like we have, they got some community folks that really were prominent in the community and got them on board. And we've talked a little bit about the importance of that, to get them on board. It's really, the willingness of the people to do it. Saying this, and you've kind of talked about it a little bit, Michael, in kind of different ways. I know the board has mentioned it. And so when you fast forward, they failed it one more time in like 2021, and then they passed it the next time. And so now they've got a new high school. But it was a multi-year process to get there. The second one I went to was also on construction. This was the Linden School District. And, he had a really good slide deck. It was him and the person that worked as their consultant. And, what his basic message was is the world has changed. The things that, the people that are moving in here, understanding who they are and what they want is different than it used to be. He used some slides that kind of talked about, he was a homegrown guy, grew up in the community. He said, they used to know me as David. Now I'm not David anymore, I'm the guy trying to raise their taxes. And just all the challenge with that, because in Linden, their ask was $160 million, which was more than double what we were asking. They had the capacity to do it. but it was just challenging, and so they really broke it down into, four different things. The outreach, open dialogue, from a business really understanding and showing what the costs were. Because they've grown so much, there was lack of social ties. People are doing a lot of different things, and so it wasn't, they just weren't tied to the community. Safety and security, you've got to talk about it different. Those used to be things that really sold everything, not as much anymore. So you're honest about that, but at the same time, really understand what the people are willing and can and want to pay for. He showed a financial graph that I thought was fascinating, where when you went into 1970, the income versus the what your money got you in a home, and then you moved it fast forward to now, it was just upside down. How income is not really kept up with inflation, and people are genuinely challenged by the cost of things. Safety and security, negative perception of schools. It's been really politicized, and that is a community that tends to, do a lot together. They work together closely, and he just found challenges there that they hadn't really had before. And so really understanding the community, getting the right people involved, and making sure that you're in tune with what people can and will do. So I thought it was really interesting. The third one, and I relate this kind of to a process that Mike and Paul and I started to discuss a few years ago, where we talked a lot about de-implementation. In this particular school district, it was creating coherence. That's really where I think the heart of the PLC process is. And, we have most people buying into that, but not everybody. But the issue is, and Jared kind of talked about it, and some of the others, if we focused on every single standard that came down the pike, the kids would go until they're 27 years old. And so these guys talked about, they've got 3 board goals. We have 4. Their 3 overlap some of ours. And so they really focus on that. And what they do within that I thought was a step that we can really purposely take, is the collaboration and trust, and really working on those things. And so when you look, I just picked the 3 slides that kind of went with that, but if you look at the second slide up there, the one that talks about coherence, goals, and programs, it's almost identical to what 2 of our goals are, And so I think in those ways, we're really on the right track with some of that. And the last one, and I think the most important thing, and I'll say what I say, quite a bit to administration and staff that I'm working with, is we need to remind ourselves frequently, all of us, why we're employed by the Sultan School District and why we're employed in this community. It's not so they have a job for Jared or Dan or anybody. It's so that we can educate and serve the students based on their needs, not mine, based on theirs. And so getting really engaged with students and understanding, I was sitting right next to Bella, I think it was yesterday, and the one kid that really struck me, because I've thought about these exact terms, it isn't just listening to kids, it's hearing them. There's a difference. And it was a phenomenal group of students, and I know that our own would have fit right in up there had they have been there. But, interacting with kids in a way that, is really, is hearing them, but celebrating was part of it. So that was the other piece of this that I wanted to highlight. And so we are essentially taking what the schools are doing as far as their own celebrations, and we're going to move forward a little bit differently than we've been doing, because we've had quite a long list. We're going to do a more focused list when we come to the board meeting on the 27th. But it's student voice, and it's recognized students. It's making sure that all of the adults in the place, we all understand and remember, why we're here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Kayla, who's next?
Okay, so K.S. Kamensky.
Okay. There's nothing about crosswalks on here, is there?
No. I promise, no. I might should have, honestly. I probably should have with you, Gigi. Okay, these are the sessions I went to. Coming to the next slide, Kayla. So the first one I went to was Ording School District. This presentation was presented by the students, actually. They gave the students the show. They let them run the whole show. This is where basically the students talked about their goals and what they wanted to make their position. They also really wanted to make sure their school board really heard students. They were very much, the perspective of students is so important, especially you're the ones that make decisions for your students. They talked about why we're going to other schools. That's something they do. They go to all their other schools. They go to elementary schools. They actually put on like videos and showing them talking to their peers, their students, the younger kids, the elementary, the middle, really just interacting to get their feedback for how their school's going, and then actually put film of their board meeting of them talking about that with their board members. A lot of times they talked about how when kids are proud of their school, they are more comfortable than who they are. If they're proud to go to school, proud of who they are, and be able to express themselves and be able to do that in their schools, they're more comfortable. They're able to be who they are through their school because they're proud to go to their school. They don't feel unsafe. They feel comfortable to be who they are. They also feel ownership of their learning, and so when you give them a voice, they feel like they own it. It's theirs because they have a voice and a say of what's going on in their school. They also kind of talked about, they're in their goals. They're in their board's goals. They got to plan those goals with their board. Not just only did the board have them, they actually got to say, hey, I like this to be in the board's goals for their students for that year, for that kind of thing. So that was kind of the ordering. So the students talked about, they made the whole presentation and everything. That's what they kind of did. The next one. The next one I went to was the Spokane Public School. This was, is their curriculum honoring their identities and experience of their students. So basically they kind of talked about how is what they're teaching represent their students. Is they brought in what their community like and their culture into the classroom. So the history behind their town, they brought a part of Spokane into their classrooms, into their teaching, and changed their curriculum in their schools based off what their community was like, to really make kids really feel like they belong somewhere, and that was their school. So bringing history of in their town, kind of being a reminder, you're there to serve students, not just to be there to be paid, you're there to serve students, and so kind of that back there. Another thing is giving students a choice in their learning. They had a lot of extra AP classes and things like that, extra language classes. They wanted to give students a choice in their learning, and that was something very big there. And other is belonging and culture there. So that was Spokane's public schools. The next one was Bites and Snacks. This was where I cannot remember his name. He put it on. He was not part of a school district.
James.
Yes, thank you, James. Oh my gosh, yes, James. He talked about a lot about how relationships with your students is key. So being able to have a relationship with the students that you're making decisions for, connecting with them. He very much feedback. Are you getting good feedback from your community? Do they know how to give feedback? Do you know how to take that feedback? Very much how the steps of how to take that. Also, a big thing was students are experts at being students. They know what being a student is. So really listening to them because they know how to be a student. They've been doing it since kindergarten. They know the expectations and the reality of being a student. He also talked about connecting. Are you connecting your learning with your community? Is your community connecting with your school? Are those things connecting, or are they separated? So kind of basically it was like rethinking how are what you're doing connecting with students, community, and school. Is that actually all aligning? And second to last one. I went to the WIA one where some basically representatives came from the WIA. They kind of talked about kind of what they represent, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are some things they really talked about wanting to be more of. They also talked about something they're really trying to work better at is coaches' education, coaching, basically education of their coaches, and a healthy environment, healthy culture for athletes, and them feeling safe in the environments they are in. Also talked a little bit about having cameras on officials at games, basically to kind of help control what goes around in different environments, so there's not as much outbursts. That's something the WI is working on to kind of help. That's where there's not so many rough situations, a he said, she said kind of thing. It's be able to kind of keep it clear. This is what really happened based off the cameras on officials. They're working on that. They're also working on a new division for our transgender athletes. They're looking at that too, to kind of be able to give those athletes an option too, so it doesn't like impede on your male, female. It gives them also a place so it doesn't basically interfere with that. And then they're also looking at letting students be officials too. They're willing to take students, kind of looking at that program because there is a shortage in refs and officials, and so looking at letting students be able to do that, kind of get that environment there. So yeah, that's kind of what the WIA was kind of, a lot of it was kind of questioning, like if you have questions, what they could answer, things like that. So that was what the WIA was about. The last one I went to was the CTE/STEM from Everett. They very much CTE and STEM. That was a big part of their push. They looked at different things from how their funding of it was working and how was it really connecting. Again, a lot of it was community and school. They brought in a lot of their community businesses into the classroom. That's why kids could really see there are other options than just going to college. If you want to actually do something that involves like your community, like owning a restaurant, that's something in your community, that to kind of see that business type of kind of thing without just always going straight to college. There's other options you can do. Being able to also like basically make it your future, your choice kind of mindset. So being able to be like, there's so many things in the world and you can find it through CTE and STEM and not just through one certain pathway. They also talked about putting your CTE and STEM, how to do that to your community, really get it out there to let the community know what it is and what it's about and why you should really help fund it and not just let it squash to nothing, because it's super important for kids. So that was very much the CTE and STEM in Everett. And then basically my last kind of additional comments is a lot of these things I really liked and I feel like we could put into our school. I think it does take time. I think student voice is important into our schools and into our board. I think that you make decisions for us, and so students should be able to have a say in that a little bit, because you're making these decisions that we have to live with. We have to go to school with them, and so I feel there's some things in here that we can definitely push to be better at and help students feel more connected to their community and their school and feel more welcome and be able to be comfortable in their own skin and not feel like they're going to get judged or harassed for it. And yeah, that's mine.
Thank you, Cameron. Good job.
Thanks, Cameron. Thank you.
Audience.
Could have been.
Are you next, Kayla?
Yes, I am. What do I want? Huh? No, this is it. A lot of screens, guys. Hold on, just give me a second. Okay, so this is my presentation on the 2024 WASDA annual conference that I attended November 21st and 23rd. And the day prior to the conference starting, we attended board boot camp. So some of you have a clear packet on your desk. I have one, and that was the materials that they provided for the board boot camp. You might have attended, but that's just the current materials that they're sharing now. It was great because they really just put it into OVP perspective. What the school board does, which is governs, and what the superintendent does, which is manages. So that list there, you can see is what they kind of went over, and that was almost a full day. So there's lots of exercises that we went through. You'll see in your packet a lot of readings that they covered. But they talked about how WASDA supports school district directors, the basics of governing a school district, the district's responsibilities, which is community engagement, and then let's practice what would you do. And so they did like real life scenarios if somebody walked up to you in a grocery store or something about something, how you would handle that. And then there was a panel, which is called Wisdom from Veteran School Directors and Superintendents. And we learned a lot there, again, more real life experiences and got some insight from them. There's a panel discussion, what your board chair and superintendent would like to tell you, but probably won't. They also talked about the board's responsibilities, so monitoring district progress. Then let's practice digging into district data. We went through a lot of numbers and they just shared how it's kind of relevant to each board. Building blocks of background knowledge, educational equity, meetings. They talked about how your board works in open public meetings. They talked about the Open Public Meeting Act, public comment guidelines, and legal and ethical responsibilities. And lastly, how we can keep learning with WASDA resources and events. Okay, next session that I attended, they focused on this acronym, CAP, C-A-P. The session was called Empowering Leadership, Board Strategies to Support New Superintendents. And so the C stands for Clear as Kind, meaning I understand the critical role of school boards in supporting superintendent success. A, act your age, identify key areas where superintendents often struggle and how to mitigate these issues. And P was provide support, so gaining practical strategies for implementing board-supported coaching and professional development. And then the next one I attended was Gender Inclusive Schools, Laws as Top Protective Factors for LGBTQ+ students. And so they went over Healthy Youth Survey data from 2023 to get familiarized with the experiences of LGBTQ+ students in Washington State schools. We also talked about getting clear on the rights and protections for LGBTQ+ students, and then connecting the dots between gender inclusive schools laws and policies and the top protective factors / supports for those students. The key takeaways were that LGBTQ+ youth are not a small percentage of students like some sometimes suspect. They are more likely to have a hard time at home and at school. And so it makes sense that these students often suffer poor mental health and turn to substances to cope. And so the last thing that they covered was just that their safety and representation, and I've said that before, and so it really hit home that having, a more diverse staff would help students feel inclusion. And then the next one was Public Records Essentials for Board Members. And so this session discussed best practices when creating public records. Topics included when records are and are not private, records generated during executive session, the use of private devices, supporting staff in handling records requests, updates on new records laws, and suggested policies boards should ensure are in place for records processing, which being on the policy committee, I've added that mix. And then the other one was utilizing perspectives for informed decision-making from Arlington School District's listening and learning journey that they shared. And I liked how they put it. The purpose of our time together was utilizing perceptions to learn from the voices of our students, staff, families, and community members to help us take intentional actions and make informed and better decisions to foster educational equity. We learned about the different kinds of voices that they have and opportunities and other actions they were taking to help each other and each student belong, learn, and achieve. And the ways that they did that was board student advisors, which Dan and I will start putting together a student advisory committee. And they also used district committees with student advisors, so just incorporating students more, essentially. Open public communication, voices opportunities and perception surveys. And then their perspectives help us find a way to improve our schools to increase student learning, support sustained improvement, build trust, credibility, understanding, collaboration, and cooperation, foster open communication, better understand what's working, areas of improvement, and suggested other ideas to consider, and to help make more informed and better decisions, and then lastly, adopt policies and procedures. Okay, and then the next one was not a session they categorized as a meeting committee, but we met with small schools and had a luncheon. And there, which in board docs, you can click on this link, that J. Marie podcast. She was one of the speakers on navigating polarized topics in small communities, tips for education leaders. So you can listen to her podcast there. She was really inspiring and very powerful in what she spoke about on that topic. And then we talked about improving the Washington School Construction Assistance Program. So that's also a live link, abetterscat.com. And so I enrolled us to kind of get informed as they go through the SCAP process. And basically legislation has asked for local superintendents to investigate how to make SCAP better. And so Tricia Lubach with WASDA and her team will visit us soon to hear what we have to say about SCAP and how it relates to our community and impacts, positive, negatives. And then the Rural Ed Center, another live link, they just shared their resources. And I think that was it for that one. Oh yeah, and at the yellow box, the table discussions. So Dan asked a good question, what is a good schedule of communication with hard topics? And the answer was pretty straightforward. It was do it regularly, do it 3 times. So just to kind of keep communication going. I thought that was a good takeaway there. The other one was planting seeds of doubt, planting seeds of hope. I forgot, I accidentally walked into this session and I grabbed their handout, but it was really good because seeds of doubt and seeds of hope grow over time, but they produce very different outcomes. Seeds of doubt may grow into mistrust and disengagement, while seeds of hope can lead to unity, trust, and progress. It's our choice which type of environment we nurture within the community, within the board superintendent team. And it said, we encourage you to commit to planting seeds of hope as you interact with the community, support your colleagues, and carry out your duties. Be mindful of how we speak about challenges, express empathy, and align with our collective mission. That was most important to me. And then the keynote speakers. So Jeff Utek was one. He's an educator, consultant, and an author. He talked about bridging generations, leading education into the AI era, and just really highlighted this theme of perspective and how we have student perspective. And then we have, the millennials and the Gen Z and Gen XY and Alpha and Beta and so on, and just how all those voices make up our district, and just to take that into consideration. And then Blair Penry was the 2024 Teacher of the Year. She talked about courageous collaboration and working together for education excellence, and she was very inspirational there too. And then the last thing was just to thank you for allowing me to attend this professional development. So thank you, board.
Thank you for going.
Thank you, Kayla.
Thanks, Kayla, nice job. Yours was so colorful.
And closing window so I can get back.
This is yours.
It's mine.
Question?
Like I said, I had like 40 pages of notes, so I tried to pull just a few things out. Board boot camp, a lot of it Kayla had on hers. A couple of things that stood out to me was this is a team sport. We serve as representatives to the district and on behalf of the district. And this is not a political position. Your own political views don't matter. first learn, then understand before you try to make changes. I think that's something that we all probably struggle with a little bit, because you get on the board and you like want to do things, but you gotta you need to learn and understand before you try to make changes. The next one was utilizing perspectives for making informed decisions. Authenticity leads to trust. And this one was about voices, and I know Cameron had one that had voices also. So that was kind of a big thing that they discussed. The goal of all of these voices is to better the education of all students. So open public communication. They talked about public hearings, making sure everybody knows how to contact the board, how to contact the superintendent, having open forums, student voices, superintendent and board member visiting the schools to actually talk to the students and hear them. I wrote that down too, don't just listen, don't listen, you need to hear. Ask questions, document the answers. Staff voices, listening sessions at each building, do it different times of day so different staff can actually come and do that. Community voices, go to the community, go to where the community is, invite different groups. Team and district office voices, doing one-on-ones with the leaders, one-on-one with the superintendent, and student advisory council, which needs to be done. They met once a month. That was really nice. Next one was roles defined, boosting efficiency and student success. They had their CFO and I can't remember what board it was, but they discussed kind of how to have good relationships between the board, superintendent. No surprises, we've talked about that a lot. Take a no surprises approach. Spending intentional planned time together. Approach all situations from a student lens. So every decision you make you use a student lens for that. Focus on continuous improvement, and it's not about setting up walls, it's about creating doors. A couple other things that stood out in this one, the board needs to be comfortable going to the superintendent. Superintendent needs to be able to feel comfortable coming to the board. It won't work if the board is in a gotcha mode. That was a real one that stood out. Make cuts as far away from the classroom as possible. That goes a long way in the community. You can rebuild the community trust by being transparent, which is one of the things that our goals is to be transparent as possible.
I'm sorry, and make cuts as far away from the classroom as possible.
So, like I guess an example would be,
You gotta cut the budget, look elsewhere.
yeah,
Oh, got it.
yeah,
I didn't
something-
look at it that way, okay.
yeah. Ensure everyone knows how the prototypical school budget model works. I know just from, Isaac going to the budget, seeing how everything is funded, it opens your eyes.
Big time.
And it's like, we all need to know how that works. And bringing back kids into the district equals increased revenue. Roles defined, boosting efficiency and student success. That's the same thing as above. This is actually supposed to be legislative update. Statewide, there's no surprises. The session starts January 13th, which was today, runs through April 27th. There's a bunch of new House members, a couple new Senate members, there's a new Senate Majority Leader. The Education Committee will likely remain stable, but the numbers keep changing between a $10 and $14 billion deficit over 4 years. So that was the update for the legislative stuff. Engaging all constituent groups to draft actionable policy. Policies need to reflect those impacted by them and served by them. So it kind of goes back again to students. Student Advisory Council, theirs meets during homeroom once a week, which sounded like a great idea. Students and staff work together to create norms for each school year, for each class, and they do that at the beginning of the year. They had some other things. They put all of their policies, their first read goes through a workshop. and they sit around with the community, and it seems like a lot of work. I don't know, it's just something that was interesting. They have a pamphlet at every board meeting, and it talks about the different types of meeting. It includes the policy on conduct. Kayla and I have already talked about doing something like that. Then they have a data summit in spring and in June. So they do weekly visits to the schools, weekly meetings with the leadership team, and then early release days are staff professional development. I'm trying not to take too long on these. Leading as board chair was really interesting. I liked it. Collaborative leadership. It's the board chair, no matter who it is at any point. You have responsibility, but no authority. It's no extra perks, but extra responsibility. Talked a lot about teamwork, attending conferences together, doing study sessions together, retreats, working on board goals, protocols, and self-evaluation. Basically being consistent. An idea that I thought was really great was calls with individual board members. So the chair would have a call with each board member bi-weekly. Because then you get to find out, maybe there's something that Michael wants to put on the agenda that, hadn't thought to ask, and I can let, Kayla and Dan know, put it on the agenda. Couple of things, make sure that the board listens to public comment, but we don't engage, which we try to do that. Make sure we have a clear strategic plan, which we're gonna work on when we have our new superintendent, and clear operating protocols. Keynote, like Kayla said, you talked about, you need to understand who's in the room with you. That's how you're gonna connect with your community better. Small school lunch, understanding your community doesn't mean you agree with them, but you need to understand and listen. Simplify our message. We are elected to serve our community and our children. Another thing I liked was show your work, show how you are listening to your community and others, show how we make decisions. That's it. It was a lot of stuff in a good amount of time, and you can kind of tell we all split up and did different ones so that we could gain the most knowledge. And I wanted to say too, because Cameron, when you were talking about like how they had the students do it, I don't know if you guys know, but the way that these come about, boards submit to WASDA and say, we want to do a session on this. And then WASDA will choose and pick. We've never done that, so if there's something that you guys want to do in the future, we could say, hey, we want to do a session on whatever, and then we could lead a session. So that was it. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to go. Michael, did you have anything?
Sure, honestly, I had a really hard time. Number one, I don't take notes and put them on a PowerPoint, so it's totally foreign to me. But I did give it a lot of thought, and what I took away big picture was less don't get me wrong, I got notes for the details, but to me, the biggest thing that I heard consistently was connecting to the community. And Dan, you kind of talked on it, but it wasn't just, it's the size of the community, right? We'd been talking about pride, student pride in the fact that you're Turk or you're, whatever, you're a Sultan student, and that pride is not as big as it used to be. And I was really surprised to hear from some of the other schools that that's not just us. That school pride is kind of something that's been hurting in a lot of, actually everyone I talked to. I didn't find anybody that said school pride was not, was healthy. Except, I did talk to a couple schools that said that they had big problems with it and the things that they did to rebuild it, but it took effort. And to me, it's kind of, I think a lot of the reasons why we weren't able to pass our bond was because we don't have that sense of community that you talked about. We've got a lot of new people to the area. There's nothing really tying us together. All my kids are moved on. Why am I going to pay for a school when my kids aren't there? Well, if there's nothing that ties us together, why are they going to invest? If the kids aren't tied together, how are they going to show the value of the school? So I feel like that struck me really hard, saying we should probably start building community in the school and then expand that community out to the public, and I think we'll end up with better ties, and frankly, a new school, and hopefully, you know, just a better
Makes
feeling for the
everything
school.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, feeling for the school. There were, honestly, I went into it with a very specific idea, you know, I was kind of told, oh, you know, you're new to the board, you'll learn so much, go to WASDA, and I kind of was expecting, you know, board member 101, and that wasn't there, you know? There were some classes that were very much like, this is the basics, these are specifics, like the OPMA. Were we in that one together? No?
Oh, you did that one after I think the board boot camp is kind of like the board member 101 kind of thing, but then I think the OPMA was after, I think you did that one on your own.
I may have done that one on my own. And they had, you know, specifics that, and I love specifics, a lot that really surprised me. Like, if someone comes in with a microphone, they can just shove it in your face, and as long as they aren't touching you and aren't being, interrupting the meeting, nothing you can do about that. We're public figures up here, they are entitled to stand and hold their cell phone in your face. Which surprised me. But yeah, so there were some details like that. The records management one, I don't know if we were in together, if it was just similar details. I think I asked you afterwards if you were the records manager, and oh man, my heart went out to you. I mean, we have to, I say we, she has to respond. Someone puts out a records request, she has to respond within 5 days, even on Christmas.
We have to acknowledge receipt within 5
Right,
days.
yeah, you have to respond. You don't have to have the paper, but she could be on vacation. And someone has to send a response within 5 days, or we can be fine. I mean, those kinds of details, and there's some guy out there that makes his living making public records requests to schools for pages he doesn't want, but if they don't fulfill them, he's made, I forget how many millions. I mean, the guy's rich. All the school districts just making public records requests.
He gets paid?
Yeah,
You're kidding me.
no. That's how the dude makes his living.
We sue them civilly for not responding in time.
Wow.
That's what almost bankrupt Gold Bar.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, it's stuff like that where, you're defending basically taxpayer money because people can just find these horrible things. Now, I mean, that's not what that wasn't the point of the class. The point of the class was, dealing with records requests, but I mean, it really shocked me that that's a possibility and a reality, and so that we need to be on top of that. Other than that, yeah, honestly, the class that I got the most out of, the speaker never showed up. It was my last class of the conference, and everyone was sitting in a room, and the speaker just didn't show up. And fortunately, the people that were there for the class all stuck around, and we all just got to talk about what's going on and what's not working, and kind of what are you doing about it. And while there were a lot of school districts that had big problems and had great stories on how they resolved it, you always find a couple nuggets that you can relate. But sitting there and just being able to talk to a whole bunch of other people that have the same stuff, that to me was the most beneficial out of the entire conference. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
One
Kayla?
last comment, I just want to say Gigi did a really good job of keeping us aware of where each person is on track and just keeping record of what sessions they attended, so she's a conference pro.
It was great having you there, actually, because you made sure that we were on time and things like that. The last thing we added to the agenda was the policy on yes. So we have a policy on absence of a board member. And the policy states, whenever possible, each board member shall give advance notice to the president or superintendent of his or her inability to attend a board meeting. A majority of the board may excuse a board member's absence from a meeting if requested to do so. The board may declare a board member's position vacant after 4 unexcused absences from regular board meetings if the absences were for reasons other than illness. This is back from 2000. So we're talking about this because Mary Ann was absent today. So we have not since I've been here, ever done the majority of the board excusing an absence, but apparently we need to do that. So we need to talk about it, figure out, do we wanna vote? You know, how we want to handle this, cause there is no procedure to go along with this. But I just wanna make sure that we're doing everything correctly. And if we want to do everything correctly, we need to follow the policy. So, does anybody have any thoughts on that? Because basically, if you're gonna be absent and you're gonna be out of town, and, I call and say, hey, I'm gonna be out of town, whatever, or you're sick, or the day before you're tired, you can't come to the meeting. So how do we wanna handle approving or not approving an absence? Anybody have thoughts?
I think you have vacations or if you're sick, or a work commitment that you can't get out of. I think those are about the only ones come off the top of my head, but.
I agree, because there's a lot of things.
Family emergency. I mean, frankly, my wife nearly cut her finger off right before the meeting, and I almost called out on the way to the hospital.
Yeah, no, of course,
She-
family emergency.
Yeah.
She okay?
She's okay.
Okay.
She got it to stop bleeding, but I mean, I was close, so.
Yeah. So it's just something we need to think about, and I think maybe we just, since it says the majority of the board has to excuse the absence, so we need to maybe do it the meeting after? Do we wanna do it the meeting they're absent from? Cause there is no, like I said, there's no procedure on this.
I'd say, it's a case by, can we sit here and think of every excuse for what would be a legitimate absence? I don't think.
No, it'll
we're
be
going to.
kind of a
So I
case
think
by
it's-
case, yeah.
I think, somebody, unless you already know the reason that they're cutting out, last minute, I'd say we wait to hear what the reasoning was, and then,
Well, like, we'll take, for example, today Mary Ann can't come, she was doing stuff and she's tired, so do we, say that, do we vote on that now, do we wait until the next meeting, how do you guys, do we want the policy committee to take this and work on it and then come back to us with it? Cause it just kinda goes back to our transparency and wanting to do things the right way.
board, yeah.
And this is a policy, so how do we wanna give it to the policy committee and say, can you tweak this a little bit and bring it back to us? Or do we wanna just decide how we wanna do it?
Whatever we decide, we have to also have documented.
Yes, it's gonna have to go to the policy committee, but for now, it says the majority of the board has to excuse an absence, if requested to do so.
okay. Well, yeah.
I think what's
think
more
if you were to
important is
re-
how many you miss more than,
Sure.
we all have issues and we're all,
Yeah.
usually we're all very good at going, hey, I'm not gonna make it, but how many are we missing? That is more important.
This one is, if you miss 4 in a row, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, something's not
And
right.
that's unexcused, so that's why the excuse comes into play, because if it's unexcused absences. I feel like a student.
I would say you vote the night that they aren't there, as long as they, if somebody calls and says, I'm not gonna be there, usually, well, I'm not gonna speak for everybody. I would tell, I got a work commitment, or not feeling well, or, I wouldn't just say I'm not gonna not be there.
How about an absence is unexcused until you submit in writing your excuse, and then we decide how legitimate that excuse is?
Yeah, and that's kind of what today, because we got a text, but I don't think
Okay.
you got it, because,
Nope.
okay, so yeah, we got the text that said that she wasn't gonna be here, so,
No, all right, so it's submitted in writing.
yeah. And it
If
was,
you want it excused, we can vote on that.
she did ask to be excused, so
I guess then it's the vote.
do we need to move then to vote to excuse? Or do we just
Can we, working session, or study session?
study session? We added it to the agenda, so technically we can.
And it's recorded. It has to be.
I move that it's unexcused at this point.
Okay,
We decided to use the excuse or unexcused.
Move for it to be unexcused.
okay. So then all in favor of it being unexcused?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, there we go. And then what we'll do is I'll have, because Kayla, the majority of the policy committee is in this room right now, we'll take it and we'll hash it out a little bit more, and we'll make a procedure to go with it that just kind of says we're gonna vote at the time that we get the information and the request, so.
We should also put in there that whichever board member is missing, that they are providing a reason why they're
Yes.
gonna be there.
Okay, we'll make sure that's in
In
there.
written, some written form, whether it's email or text or something that is.
Yeah, policy 1450.
And since it was 2,000, you might just look and see, is there any updated versions? This is
Yeah.
one we spent a lot of time.
Dave's great about looking at other districts, since Michelle looks at even like University of Washington, and so we kind of take guidance from other districts that have policies out. Okay, we do have an executive session that will be 30 minutes or less, let's say that. So I need let's see, the executive session is,
Numbers 3 and 5.
what is it for, Dan?
3 and 5, publicly bid contracts and evaluation of personnel.
Okay, so I need a motion to adjourn.